Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
So everyone is going to listen to Dean Webb. I always love when I come to the studio and Dean Webb is here. He's got the most beautiful smile. He's always uplifting. And, of course, Dean, though, has a very big position. He's the executive director of Faith Farm Ministries, and he's always into so many things. So when I said to him, so what's our topic today? He said...
Cattle. I've been doing cattle.
I said, do cattle get addicted?
No, we have them on our 1,500 acres up in Okeechobee. And our whole discussion yesterday was how to... when you have a cattle plan, you have heifers, and after they have, you put them out in pasture with bulls, and you have to have a certain ratio of bulls per cows to cover all of them, and if then we preg check them for pregnancy after about 60 days, and if they're pregnant, especially if they're new heifers, that's great because they're fertile. They take the first time. So we were discussing yesterday with the director up there, what do you do with the ones that you preg check and they're not pregnant? Well, he's going to move them to a different pasture and then put the bulls on them for another 60 days. And if they don't get pregnant, we'll grow them to 500 to 600 pounds and sell them for, price on the hoof for feed or for food. If they do get pregnant, we still separate them, and then we will sell them as bred heifers, which you get a lot more money for, but we won't keep them because we're trying to grow our herd faster, so we want really fertile heifers that catch every single time on the pregnancy cycle.
So you have enough bulls?
Yeah, I got to buy 5 more, but that's because we just bought 60 bred heifers to try and jumpstart our herd.
So are you really? So this is a money-making enterprise, I gather.
Well, everything we do is money making. I mean, we have to because, unfortunately, not everybody rushes to give us cash donations like we need. But so we have to do our own business enterprise. So it's really difficult to know how to work this. We bring the heifers in. We put metal tags on them so we can keep a running spreadsheet of where they are, when they came in, when they got pregnant, if they didn't, where to move them to the pasture, and we have to move the cattle around because we will fertilize and seed and lime a pasture and make it grow. Then we'll put the cows back on there and do another pasture. So there's I have a lot of respect for farmers who make their entire living doing this. I don't know how. It just blows my mind.
Well, I have a few questions. So, what kind of grass are they eating, first of all?
Oh, don't ask me that. We've changed three different
grass. Is it natural, though? I mean, what?
Yeah, it depends. Like we have some pastures that are kind of low and damp, and you use a certain kind of grass that does really well in damp soil. And then the others that are dry, you have to use a real hardy one so they won't burn out in the summer heat. And I don't know all the grasses. I haven't gotten down in the weeds or grass that much, but we have 3 different grasses. They tell me that they seed with.
Okay, so I have another question. How many people do you have? Do you have any women helping, or only men?
Just men on that campus. Okay. All the women are on the Boynton Beach campus, and I've been yesterday. I was all day up at the Okeechobee campus where we have the cattle.
Okay, so how many men does it take to run all that? The product? Well,
we have 84 men on that campus that are in our student program. Now, about 10 to a dozen of them go over. We truck them 12 miles away to the thrift store in downtown Okeechobee, and they run our thrift store.
I didn't even know you had a thrift store in Okeechobee.
Yeah, it's small. It does about 1/12 the volume of our Palm Beach County store.
But it's there for PR and also.
Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of migrant workers up there, so there's less elasticity of income, a lot less disposable income, so it doesn't do the volume that we do at the Boynton Beach store, for example. But we do have that, and we have guys that maintain our orange groves. We have 62 acres of oranges, and they have to maintain the orange groves, fertilize them, water them, all that stuff. And
then do they pick them? How do you remove them? To be able
we
to sell them?
contract pickers because they want most companies that do real high volume. They have certain people that they use that go in front of them to pick and box, and that's who they want to do it. So we just contract for a flat box rate price, and we usually contract for a bonus on what they call weight or sweeteners. Once they test the oranges, if they have a certain sweetness amount, we get a more bonus. Like last year, we did about $80,000 or $90,000, but we got a $19,000 sweetener bonus
and how
because
do you
they
make,
have such good.
How do you make them sweet?
Partly fertilizer, part of it's natural. How the sun comes out and how many cold days you have and all this stuff. But they have little machines they put against them and test the sweetness when to pick them.
You never knew any of these things, did you,
No.
before? This must be a lot of fun
No, I
for
grew up
you.
in a farm in Oklahoma, and I knew about knocking down corn and letting it dry and feeding our cattle because my dad had an orphanage home that we had to feed a lot of kids. And so I knew a little bit, but I have a director at each campus that really knows good stuff and what they need to do. And the director I just promoted up there, sent him to what they call the short course. It's a 3-day cattle farming short course on how to raise cattle and how to deal with them and track them and breed them and all that stuff up at the University of Florida. And so we get assistance from wherever we can.
So, Dean Webb, you are amazing how you're running all this. And I guess when I think about it, the men who were there, of course, we know that they've had addictions, and that's why they're there at Faith Farm. They must love that because they're really dealing with animals rather than just people and clothing and furniture. I would think that would tame some of the real wild ones.
Yeah, well, it does. It's a very calming influence up at Okeechobee. The pace at Palm Beach is frantic, but with the thrift store volume of sales and the recycling and all that, it's very laid back up at Okeechobee. They walk through and prune the blueberry plants, and we're growing pumpkins now. And we were doing a game plan for what would happen if we lost our orange grove, because most people around us have lost them for greening. Greening is a disease that gets and it's carried by air, and there are people with just nothing but acres and acres of dead orange trees. And we've been very blessed in that we have not been. Everybody around us had been wiped out by greening except Faith Farm.
Oh my heavens, that's got to say something.
Yeah, so we pray a lot.
Yeah, I've said that.
So we always, there's a proverb that says a wise man foresees a problem and plans for it, but the foolish just proceed on and fall off a cliff. So
True.
No matter how blessed we are always trying to think ahead. And we were talking about how we would modify the orange groves if we would lose our groves, and what vegetables we'd put and how we'd make the rows more closer together. They're already irrigated, so we don't have to do anything but plant vegetables if that should happen.
And is the 1,200 acres enough for you? Are you looking to expand? Sounds to me like you got a lot of plans.
Well, that's a lot. I mean, when you come on our campus and you drive to the back, it's 2 miles.
Oh, okay.
It's a lot of land.
Do you have tractors?
Yeah, got a tractor.
It's a real farm.
Yeah, sure.
This is very exciting. I think maybe you have to have tours.
Well, for example, on the 31st, Sunday the 31st, we usually have our graduations from 10 to 12 on a Sunday. But a lot of our board members, 3 of them are pastors, so they have their own church, so they can't ever come to a graduation. So every year at each of the 3 farms, we pick one graduation to do it at 3 in the afternoon instead of 10 in the morning. And on July 31st, the last day of this month, is Okeechobee's opportunity to do it 3 in the afternoon. So we send out invitations, and people will come, and we'll usually give them a tour. A lot of people want to give a tour. It's not real in depth. We'll go back 2 miles and show them all the, what we do. And we go right by the little tiny sheds where the little baby dairy bulls are. The dairy business up there, they slaughter their little bulls because they need milkers. They need females. And so we take those and those little babies, 1 to 2 days, 3 days old, and bottle feed them, and we raise them up to where they can eat out of a little trough. And we have different pastures with graduated heights of troughs as the cattle get older and taller and bigger. And like we sold one batch of 500 of them at one time to a meat packing firm. And so we make, Anita, we make money however we can just to plow into the program to help people.
Well, now, this is a new enterprise from what the original founder planned. How did this all come about?
When he started in Fort Lauderdale, he had a church, and he took people in overnight, and the uppity-ups didn't want people coming, homeless people hanging around waiting for the evening meal and stuff, so they wouldn't give him a permit to modify the building. He tried for 2 years, so finally he went out to the outskirts of Fort Lauderdale and bought 13 acres, and he called it Faith Farm. And so he eventually sold the church in town, put the money into that, and put dormitories. And he called it Faith Farm because he was operating on faith, but he also was growing royal palms and vegetables and that sort of thing. And he had a building that he would take furniture in and repair it and fix it and paint it. And at that time, he would even taught guys how to upholster, because our founder used to be in the upholstery and furniture business up in Ohio when God called him down to start Faith Farm. So that's how it got its name, and that's how it started. And eventually, it was totally packed out, so he came 45 minutes north to Palm Beach and bought 90 acres. When that was full, 18 years later, he went up to Okeechobee and bought 1,500 acres. And that's the progress of how the three evolved. So it's more agricultural up at Okeechobee. Some people, if they come from farming or ranching, they're very uncomfortable being in the high-rise city part of Lauderdale. They're probably a little more comfortable in the suburbia of kind of spread out 90 acres on Okeechobee or Boynton Beach. But Okeechobee with 1,500 acres, some of these guys, that's what they've grown up with. And when they see on the line, they will apply specifically to Okeechobee if they're from a farming area or ranching.
So you told me once, I do remember, it was very special, a gentleman who wasn't doing well at Faith Farm. You sent him out there, and something happened with the babies.
Oh, yeah. He had never, addicts are so self-consumed. Everything's turned on. It's all about me. It's them. They'll lie, cheat, and steal to get money for their next fix. It's really sad. But when you get them out of the addicted state and they've detoxed and you get them on campus, if we assign this kid to taking care of these little infant, baby bulls, and didn't want to do it particularly, but he did it. But there was he somehow just experienced a situation where he was caring for that little helpless bull and watching it grow up and stuff, that it so changed his life. When he went back home after he graduated, his parents could see he was totally changed. Well, the reason we know there was such an impact is at Christmas, our director got a Christmas card, and he said, I have not been able to get my wife for 35 years to go to church with me. She thinks everybody that goes to church are hypocrites, and she doesn't want anything to do with it. But when she saw the changed life of my son come back, our son, she waited for 2 weeks, and when she saw that it was a permanent change, the next week she went to church with me, and she's been going to church with me and my son, the three of us, every Sunday after that. And he says, enclosed you'll find a check, and there was a check for $30,000. He said,
can't believe this.
He said, Faith Farm did for me what I've been trying for 3.5 decades to do, and that is to have my wife go to church with me. But when she saw
I have goosebumps all over. This is quite a story.
So that's just an amazing thing. We also had a guy named Ian who was a 6'6". He was Jewish, but they billed him as a professional wrestler, Italian. They called him the Italian Stallion. And he used to wrestle all over the country on TV and everything. He actually practiced law without ever going to school for 12 years in New York City. I mean, this guy was a renegade of renegades. And I'm not going to deal with those little baby cattle, and everything. We said, Ian, you got to do it. Well, this big old lummox, this big old guy, handling those little baby things, over time it so softened his heart. He accepted God in his life, and he is so changed. He still comes back. Every now and then we'll see him at a graduation at Okeechobee. He'll come back, and I don't know exactly what he's doing, but he's still clean. And
that touched him to a side where he never allowed anyone to see that.
Absolutely,
I gather.
There's a therapeutic value. The problem is a lot of the people found out that the little baby bulls they were killing, when we took them free, they started finding out we were growing them up and we were making money off of them. So now they start charging us for them, and they keep upping the price to the point. Now this is something that they were destroying before we got involved.
That's so unfair.
Yeah,
then.
And they start at $20, and then finally they got up to $120 for these 3-year-olds.
That's
and we have
not
such a high
right.
death rate because they're not nursing. They have no colostrum, so they have no immune. So we lose a lot of them. But still, they try and charge. So we're having to back off of that, and it's sad because if these guys could know the therapeutic value of these hardened drug addicts come in and dealing with these little helpless dairy bulls, if they could see the life change that produces, they ought to be giving us money, not charging us.
The name of the person who owns that or runs that. Who owns that? Someone, whoever it is, I want that name because I'm writing them a letter.
Okay.
I'm going to write them a letter. I really want to do that because that's so unfair. I mean, they can charge you $1.
Yeah.
But they can't do that. That's not fair for what you all are doing. Now, that's my response. That's your responsibility to me. I'm going to write the letter.
I will get that. I'll get that from the
Glad you told me.
director.
This is, it's outrageous.
Yeah, it's sad. It's what the sad thing about it, Anita, is that they were getting nothing for them. They were destroying them and having to pay to haul them off.
And so you found that out, and that's what you all took that on.
Because we're always looking for entrepreneurial ways to make money for our program.
And also, you have the help. They need things to do anyway. It was perfect.
It's very labor intensive. It's not. We've got free labor because guys are in the program. It's also therapeutic. It was just a win-win for everybody because we were taking them off their hands because they were killing them.
Well, I'm glad that you came to the show today because I think we're going to do something with this.
Money changes people. It's funny. It's really
but
it's really
they
sad.
know where it's going. They know what it's doing. They know that this isn't going to someone's pocket. Well, so that's a good time for us to maybe go out there and not beg but ask for people to do as that other person did. I'm asked to contribute to a lot of things, and of course, sometimes you write a little small. I don't write big checks, but a small check, and I hope that it goes to the right place and does the right thing. But if you would become aware of Faith Farm, whether you go to one of their graduations or you go out to either the 3 campuses, and you'll see where the money goes. And I think right after I finish this little diatribe, you can tell people what it costs for people who really are out of the world. They're just not in the world. They have addictions. They cause their own problems. They cause their family's problems. They cause society problems. And you all take them. They don't pay a cent. They learn trades. They get educated. And all we want you to do is when you're contributing to organizations, save a little bit and give to Faith Farm. It's really important. You can go to faithfarm.org. It is the most wonderful organization. I don't know of any. I'm on some boards, but I love this organization so much. And if you want to come to the Boomer Expo, you'll be able to meet Judy Walters there. Hand her a small check, but just give her something. So go ahead. You tell people what you do for human beings.
It cost us about $3,000 per person per month for that program to be free for them. So
what does that include?
Everything: room, board, food, education. They can get up to 9 hours of college credit. If they don't have a GED, we pay for the instructor from the county to come in and teach them so they can sit and get their GED. We have a comprehensive work training program where they can they can pass tests. It could be in docks or trucks or recycling or new furniture or donated furniture or food service. We do 500,000 meals a year we prepare between the 3 campuses. So we just had Flippany, a group, come down to Lauderdale, and we brought all of our guys down, and they talked. She taught for 2 days about nutrition. and she's going to modify our comprehensive work training in the food service area. She says, because I have a catering company on the side, and she said, a lot of your stuff is really great. She said, but there's some things that you really need to know to get hired immediately. And so she's modifying our CWT for food service so that the people who do this, they can go out and they're qualified to be a short order cook or whatever. And there's a heavy turnover in that. For example, we can always get our guys can always get a job as a short order cook once they finish this completion. So we're always looking to enhance the program every way we possibly can, because if we can't help people, we'll help them with Pell Grants and get college and stuff. But if they can't either get in school or get a job and they leave us and graduate, if they don't have any assistance, if they don't really get a job quickly, and we have an Omega work program at Lauderdale that all 3 campuses feed into. They live there for 6 months while they go out and get a job, and then once they get their job, they have 6 months to accumulate their money to get first and last month's rent and their stuff. And then they move on and let somebody else come in that bed in the Omega house. And so we do, if we can't get them somehow gainfully employed, sooner or later, I don't care what life change they want in their heart, they get desperate and they'll start doing what they did before we got them, and that's stealing or whatever, or dealing drugs or whatever. So we have to do everything we can on a longevity basis to try and get them help when they leave us.
I think what you've just shared is so perfect, because you're right. A lot of these very fancy places, people spend a lot of money, and for 30 days they're being
30,000
detoxed.
usually.
Yes, 30,000, and they, and they mean well to try to get people, of course, out of addiction. But then there's the follow-up is the same. Yes, they ask them to come back at night, some nights for support, because I have read into some of that. But what you do is perfect. You see, this way they're not being like, if someone's in prison, they're put out, and yeah, there's always social workers, but it's not the same. That they have a place that they can be while they're gaining employment, because they're afraid, and now they're out there. I wasn't as aware of, I know some of your programs, but you've just now helped me understand. You take care of them 6 months, and then after that, if they have a problem, you probably work to get them a job too. I mean, see, you're doing a comprehensive recovery.
Yes, absolutely. And I know there are a lot of miracle 30-day programs and stuff, but you really need, in my opinion, they're abstinence programs, helping you stay off for 30 days. If you don't have a comprehensive program, not to help them physically, spiritually, every way you can, and then to help them get a job or get in school or whatever, you just have a negative return sometimes.
Well, I was thinking about that, because probably when you've been an addict and you've been serious enough to be able to get rehabilitated at Faith Farm, you probably carry a psychological deficit. And so you are helping them not to feel so ashamed and not to feel, that they're a bad person. Because when I've gone to the graduations, what they express has been just wonderful. And so that's the one step now to go forward. But there'll be a lot of steps backwards. And they do need some people who love them and care about them and can help them.
Yeah. There's a girl that graduated from our program. She's just a wonderful person. She actually married one of the guys who graduated from our program. And she had a 3.5-year-old son when they got married. Well, anyway, they're working at halfway houses. Well, her father, who's an executive in Cincinnati, he came down, and I was talking to them, went to lunch with them. And what he does is every morning he writes he picks a scripture verse out of the Bible, and he writes just a little paragraph of encouragement, and he records, to that he attaches a recorded song. It's usually one verse and chorus of a hymn or some Christian song or something like that, and sends that to them, and they listen to that every morning. Because he said, if my daughter was addicted for 20 years, I never got any sleep at night. He says, and Faith Farm turned her life around. And he says, I've just got to help maintain that, encourage her. And so they said that's the greatest thing every morning to get her father's email with that sings a little song, and then it's got a little thing, and
it's called Pure Love.
Absolutely. He's continuing to pour into their life.
Well, these stories, of course, and in your book, I always bring your book, You Turn to God, Wrong Ways Made Right, and Dean O. Webb wrote this, and what it is a collection of about 50 people who graduated, and they're very special. Now there are, I don't know, thousands, but so many people graduate. But Dean picked the ones he felt were really appropriate, and he did this beautiful book. And when you read the book, I mean, I'm sure people who are addicted, if they read the book, it will help them a lot to see that they also have a chance.
Yeah, we have an academic board, and the academic board that selects our curriculum for all the campuses and the women's program. They now, when guys and gals come in orientation, they're given a copy of that book. And I actually make a donation to cover that, because I've heard so much feedback, because I've heard girls say, I was about to walk off and they made me read this in orientation, and she thought, I'm not as bad as that girl. if she can make it, I can make it.
That's a good point.
And she said, I wouldn't have stayed around if I hadn't read that. And
so it's required reading.
It is now in orientation, just simply because it gives them hope. It gives them hope when they read all those 50 stories of people that have come through and transformed their lives. And they can see them, like Troy, the director of Boynton. They see him walking around on campus. Man. They see Raj, the guy from India, who's our IT guy. They see him walking around. They see people who have stood the test of time and had their life changed and are walking around. So that's just facial evidence ratifying what they just read. They just get so excited about it.
So I'm sure that you're thinking about writing another one or writing something. We once talked about that, maybe other families who have been affected by their kids being in here. Well, Dean, of course, we did this again. We never know what we're going to talk about, but you actually have so many stories. I hardly even have to be here, and we thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm writing
I love
that
to
letter.
Talk about faith.
And you just get me those names. I'm writing the letter. Okay.
Thank you.